Well, a lawsuit that started because of a joke has itself now
become the joke.
Viva Fry, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and this is Winnie the Westie, and there are going to be a lot of new faces watching this vlog. This is Viva in his natural environment, his Subaru, making videos out of this car, which started 2 years ago because of the COVID pandemic. This was the quietest place I could find in the house, and actually I quite grew to like the acoustics in the car.
Oh, babe.
For those of you who are new to the channel, I am in fact really a lawyer. I was sworn in 2007. I have over 13 years of commercial litigation experience. I started making videos out of my car, breaking down things that were going on in the legal world, explaining them in terms that everyone could understand, and it grew into this wonderful thing we now know as Viva Fry, the vlog. Well, this vlog has been a story that I have been covering for a few years now, and back in the early days of the vlog, I had a lot of American followers, and they used to tell me, Viva, you don't have freedom of speech in Canada. There's that story of the stand-up comic who was literally fined for a joke he made. I thought at the time that it was a joke, but lo and behold, no, it wasn't. A comedian, Mike Ward, was in fact taken to the Quebec Human Rights Tribunal, and he was found guilty and ordered to pay $43,000 to a kid and his mother for jokes he made about the kid
in the stand-up bit.
And now you can hear some garbage trucks behind me. This is the risk of having an office which is parked on the side of a street. Let's just wait for that truck to pass.
A few minutes later.
This judicial saga goes all the way back to a Quebec Human Rights Tribunal from 2016 and relates to jokes that were made in 2010 to 2013 by stand-up comic Mike Ward about a child celebrity named Jérémy Gabriel who suffers from Treacher-Collins syndrome and whose claim to fame was singing for the Pope
because he had a dream to sing for the Pope.
The stand-up bit that was at the heart of this now 6-year-long legal battle was called Les Vaches Sacrées, which is literally French for the sacred cows, but more non-literally means the untouchables. And Mike Ward's entire purpose, the entire bit was predicated on the idea that there are some Quebec celebrities who are so sacred you cannot make fun of them without getting into trouble. Those two were Celine Dion and Jérémy Gabriel, and my goodness, did Mike Ward ever prove his point. Jérémy Gabriel and his mother took Mike Ward to the Quebec Human Rights Tribunal for alleged Quebec charter violations, and they actually won before the Quebec Human Rights Tribunal. From the CBC from 2016, Mike Ward's Human Rights Tribunal decision explained. In a decision handed down Wednesday, the tribunal ordered comedian Mike Ward to pay a total of $42,000 to Jérémy Gabriel and his mother, compensation for being the butt of several jokes. One comedian called the ruling, quote, terrifying, end quote. Local radio host Ted Bird described it as having felled the, quote, last bastion of unfettered free speech, end quote. For those of you who may not know, the Quebec Human Rights Tribunal are specialty administrative tribunals that were set up specifically to enforce the provisions of the Quebec Charter of Human Rights. They have been described as activist tribunals from time to time, and some might say rightly so. The Quebec Human Rights Tribunal initially came to the conclusion that Mike Ward, through his jokes, violated the integrity of Jérémy Gabriel and his mother, and ordered Mike Ward to pay to Jérémy Gabriel something like $33,000 and $10,000 to his mother. Now, bear in mind that the Quebec Human Rights Tribunal do not have jurisdiction to enforce matters of defamation, so this was not a case of the dog just fell down. This was not a case of defamation. This was a case of Mike Ward allegedly having violated the Quebec charter rights of Jérémy Gabriel
through his jokes.
The Quebec Human Rights Tribunal came to the conclusion that Mike Ward had picked on Jérémy Gabriel because of his handicap, and in so doing discriminated against Jérémy Gabriel because of his handicap. How they came to the conclusion against his mother, we don't know, but that was overturned in appeal because Mike Ward did in fact appeal the decision and won in part on the appeal, and that the Court of Appeal came to the conclusion that the court did not have jurisdiction to grant any damages to Jérémy Gabriel's mother. But Mike Ward, being a little more tenacious than that, actually appealed the Court of Appeal's affirmation in part of the Quebec Human Rights Tribunal decision. It went to the Supreme Court of Canada, and in a split decision, 5-4, the court came down and said, no, nothing about this violated Jérémy Gabriel's rights. I did a vlog breaking down that Supreme Court decision, which you can go watch at your leisure, but my goodness, did we save freedom of speech by the skin of our Canadian teeth. But it would seem that Jérémy Gabriel and his mother are not quite yet ready to say, stick a fork in it, it's done. They are suing Mike Ward again, this time in provincial court for damages. From Global Fake News, Quebec comedian Mike Ward facing new legal action for joke about disabled singer. A short but important parentheses to open here. Mike Ward did not just pick on any random kid for their disability. Jérémy Gabriel was in fact a public figure. He was known for his singing, but not for the quality of his singing necessarily, but only for the inspiration of his story. The essence of Mike Ward's joke, other than Jérémy Gabriel being an untouchable in Quebec society, is that Mike Ward thought that the kid got to sing for the Pope because it was a dying wish, and he thought the kid was dying, but the kid ended up never dying. It was not necessarily the most polite joke out there. It was not necessarily even the most funny joke out there, but if you don't like stand-up comedy, you don't have to go to the show, and you don't have to pay the comedian to hear their jokes if you don't like them, but that was the idea of the joke. A Quebec comedian who won a high-profile Supreme Court of Canada human rights case last year is once again being taken to court by his accusers. Mike Ward is being sued in separate actions in Quebec's Superior Court and Provincial Court for a total of $372,600 in connection with a joke he made between 2010 and 2013 about trying to drown a well-known singer with a disability who was a teenager at the time. And just to explain the difference between Superior Court and Provincial Court, there are material thresholds for jurisdiction to get into one court or the other. A claim above a certain amount goes to the Superior Court, a claim below a certain amount goes to the Provincial Court. But between Jérémy Gabriel and his mother, the two of them are suing Mike Ward for over $372,000 for jokes he made over a decade ago. The singer Jérémy Gabriel and his mother, Sylvie Gabriel, claim they both suffered significant harm following a comedy tour by Ward, which featured a joke at the expense of the young man with Treacher-Collins syndrome, a congenital condition characterized by deformities of the skull and face. In 2016, Quebec's Human Rights Tribunal ordered Ward to pay $35,000 in damages to Jérémy Gabriel and $7,000 to his mother based on the remarks. But that case went to the Supreme Court, pitting artistic expression in the form of dark comedy against the protection of one's dignity. In a 5-4 decision last October, the country's highest court concluded that the elements of a discrimination claim under the Quebec Charter had not been established in the case. The court also said the singer and his mother chose the wrong court, the Human Rights Tribunal, for their case. This is the jurisdictional argument here. The Quebec Human Rights Tribunal only have jurisdiction to hear matters arising from the Quebec Charter of Human Rights. They do not have jurisdiction to hear general damages claims
Or claims for defamation.
So it seems now that Jérémy Gabriel and his mother are saying, oh look, we took the wrong action before the wrong court, so we're going to go now and file a new case before the Superior Court and the Provincial Court to get a second kick at the can. Now, I have not read the new lawsuit, but I can only surmise that it is basically going to repeat the allegations that were contained in the initial complaint, and from what the news is reporting, that seems to be the case. The two plaintiffs allege in new lawsuits that Ward knowingly attacked them with intent to harm, and that he sought to ridicule, humiliate, and expose them to the hatred or contempt of his audience. The terminology being used here is not by accident exposing them to hatred or contempt. These are typically the criteria used to establish defamation, and this was the complaint from the very beginning, that the action they took seemed to be an action in defamation and not human rights violations. But either way, the concept of prescription, or otherwise known as the statute of limitations, is going to be a big problem here, because typically in Quebec, you have 3 years to avail yourself to a cause of action if it is for a real right, and 1 year to avail yourself to a cause of action if it is based on defamation. Article 2925 of the Civil Code of Quebec, l'action qui tend à faire valoir un droit personnel ou un droit réel mobilier et dont le délai de prescription n'est pas autrement fixé se prescrit par 3 ans. And I just wanted to read that in French for the fun of it.
English, mother... Do you speak it?
In English, it says, an action to enforce a personal right or movable real right is prescribed by 3 years if the prescriptive period is not otherwise established. And when it comes to an action in defamation, that prescription period is in fact otherwise established. Article 2929 of the Civil Code of Quebec, an action for defamation is prescribed by 1 year from the day on which the defamed person learned of the defamation. So on its face, on a plain reading of the relevant provisions of law as relates to the statute of limitations, or in Quebec, the prescription period, it would seem that this cause of action has long since expired. To the extent that the cause of action has seemingly long since been prescribed, it would seem that the appropriate response would be to file a motion to dismiss, and according to Mike Ward's lawyers, that's exactly what they're going to do. Ward's lawyer, Julius Gray, said he would make an early motion to dismiss the lawsuits, likely in the spring. He said Quebec law gives complainants 1 year from the time of an alleged offense to bring a defamation case. Quote, these events took place 11 or 12 years ago, end quote, Gray said in an interview Tuesday. He said he would also argue the 2 lawsuits should be dismissed as, quote, an abuse of proceedings, end quote. There is going to be a semantics game at play here as to what is the nature of the action. Is it a defamation case, or is it a generalized damages case? Because defamation prescribes by 1 year, generalized damages prescribes by 3 years, and there's going to be an argument on jurisdictional issues here as well. In law, there is a distinction to be drawn between dismissal of a suit on purely jurisdictional reasons. For example, you filed in the wrong court, versus dismissal on the merits, and if you get dismissed for purely jurisdictional reasons, as in you filed in the wrong court, in theory you have 3 months from the time of that decision to file in the right court, so prescription is suspended, and in theory the lawsuit is not itself prescribed. However, if the lawsuit has been dismissed on the merits itself and you are no longer within the statute of limitations or the prescription period, too bad, so sad, your cause of action has been extinguished. So Jérémy Gabriel is going to have to argue that the Supreme Court of Canada dismissed the lawsuit on jurisdictional matters, saying it wasn't a defamation case and you filed in the wrong venue, and in theory he would have 3 months from the date of that judgment in order to file in the proper venue, and I will be following it, but I have the sneaking suspicion this lawsuit is in fact getting tossed, if on nothing else, on the fact that it is in fact prescribed, and I dare say we are getting very close to Jeremy Gabriel and his mother potentially being guilty of abusive proceedings when the highest court of the land comes down and says your case is dismissed, and they say we want another kick at the can before the Superior Court and Provincial Court. Enough is enough already. You tried, you initially succeeded, it went to the Supreme Court, they said no mas, and I think that's where this story should end, but alas, some people
Just want to carry it on a little more.
So that is the latest coming out of Canada. If you like my content, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment section below because it feeds the algorithm. I will be back in Ottawa sooner than later to continue documenting in real time the revolution as it happens. This time around, who knew the revolution will be televised? But no, I will not be taking Winston because he will just slow me down and cramp my style. But more important than anything else, take care of yourselves, check in on friends and family, make sure everyone around you is doing well, and now you know your vlog. Peace out.